Welcome to the Box Score Sports Podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Box Score Sports YouTube channel. Starting out great right away. I'm your host, Ryan. On today's clip, we are going to continue our NBA season preview with the Los Angeles Clippers. Before me and Clint get into it, let us know in the comments down below what you think of the Clippers season moving forward. Also, like and subscribe. Clint, let's talk about the Clippers. They finished 50 and 52. I would say for most people, kind of a surprise of how good they were last year. They re-signed Harden. They added Bradley Beal, John Collins, Brook Lopez, Chris Paul. And they didn't really lose anyone except Norman Powell in a trade, which is, a big deal. He was pretty good for them last year. What is the biggest strength, or what are you most looking forward to for the Clippers in this season?
By far, their biggest strength has to be circumventing the salary cap, planting
and
trees.
Getting away with it?
No, I was trying to find a way to throw that in. I was checking to see if I got my payment from Aspiration yet. It hasn't come in. But I think the strength of this team is the veterans in depth. This is one of those teams when you look at it and you're like, okay, everyone's getting up there with age. You obviously have injury risk. But when you look at it, you're like, these are all good players still. They can all play a role. They're all solid. James Harden is kind of held on, longer than maybe we thought. He keeps plugging along. But I think it's just the depth that they can just plug someone else in, run a system with with Ty Lue, who's a really good coach, and that just it gives them a high floor. Maybe not a high ceiling, but a high floor.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think what just to go with your Harden thing, he never relied a lot on his athleticism. So I think that's why he's plugging along. And what I think I learned last year, I was down on the Clippers, full transparency last year. What I learned last year, if you have a really good playmaker, you're going to find a way to win 42 games. And what's the rest of the roster look like around him? And, Leonard, Collins, Zubac took a step forward last year. They now have a way to spread the court when, with Lopez now, which is something that I've been since the Clippers had Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. I'm like, get a center that can spread the floor. Now they got one with Harden and Leonard, and I think that's going to be good to open up the paint more for Leonard, especially because that's where he likes to do his post moves and where he likes to do his work. And so I just think having Harden is a huge strength because he's going to find a way to win 40 games with the right roster. And this is a more than adequate roster to win plus 45 games or whatever.
Yeah. And of all the older guys, he's never really hurt. So
yeah,
you're going to get the 75, 80 games out of him. And, even though his athleticism is toned down and his floater game isn't the same, he still passes the ball good. He still shoots the ball. Again, that constant, like you said, gives you a lot of options.
Yeah, correct. And I think having Chris Paul as a backup who knows how to play basketball is really good. Okay, weakness. What is your biggest weakness for the Clippers going into the season?
I just think it sounds repetitive, but it's just the injuries.
Okay.
If you trade for Bradley Beal, right? We know what that is, right? We can get 50 games from Bradley Beal. Kawhi Leonard, when he plays, the Clippers, their advanced numbers are incredible. But again, he played, more than maybe we thought last year. But that always just seems like a ticking time bomb. So I think the worry is, or the weakness is if you lose Kawhi Leonard, you're good. But we've seen it, and it's just. Especially Bradley Beal, he kind of another level to that. You shipped out Norman Powell, which he kind of had a outlier season last year, but you kind of know what you're going to get. Bradley Beal, you know what you're going to get, but you don't know how often you're going to get it. So I think it throws a little kink in there in that guard forward spot.
Right now, if you had to choose between Norman Powell and Bradley Beal to be on your roster, which guy would you choose?
I've never been. I would take Norman Powell.
Me
I
too.
know
Yeah.
he wanted to get paid, which is probably what factored into this. And he's also getting up there in age. But I would prefer Norman Powell because I know what I'm going to get.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a longer defender. Like he's not a like I think he's a little better defender than Bradley Beal, which goes into my big concern is their backcourt defense is like when they're versing small shifty guards, it's like is Bradley Beal or James Harden going to cover him? And I don't think either one. So are we going to then move Kawhi on a shifty a shifty guard? He might be able to do it, but then now you're having Bradley Beal or Harden guard someone undersized, which Harden's okay at that. Like he's actually pretty good at guarding somebody a bit bigger than him. But I just don't. And then like, do you want to put that wear and tear on Kawhi? So I think that their guard defense is a big concern of mine. I think that both Harden and Bradley Beal are mediocre defenders or even less than that, despite what Ty Lue said about Bradley Beal's defense. I don't see it. So that's my big concern, big weakness of theirs is I just don't know who's guarding these shifty guards on their team when those two guys are on the floor together.
Yeah, and if you bring in Chris Dunn, who's a really good defender, then you gotta match up shooting with that
Right.
because
And then you're going to be a
can't.
little undersized too then at
Right,
that point. Right.
right. We saw like against Denver, they were just fine to just let him stand wherever and shoot.
Yeah, correct. Right, exactly. Big question for the Clippers, other than is Kawhi gonna be suspended? Wait, no, I'm sorry. Sorry. He's got aspirations to play as much as a season
Yeah.
as possible. Okay. Okay. That's okay. Enough with the
Yeah,
jokes.
my question will be John Collins.
Okay, I like it.
What do we have? He was really down in not Denver, Atlanta, and then the first year with the Jazz was take it or leave it. But he shot good. He started shooting good. He had that I believe he had a thumb injury, and his shooting came back. Is that what we're going to get from him? Because I think that's key. If you can play John Collins at the four and he can shoot, I think you got something. If he can't shoot, then again you're back to Batum, who is really old, and he only plays limited. And then you bring in Derek Jones Jr. Again, athlete, can't really shoot, and it kind of changes their equation. So I think my question is just John Collins. Is last year's John Collins real? Then we got something here. And if it was just, hey, I got to tee up shots because I was on the Jazz, and it's not real, I think it creates some issues.
Yeah, in theory, he should get better looks on the Clippers because there shouldn't be, like that's what Harden's good at. And like there's not going to be a ton of attention on him when you have Harden and Kawhi on your team. Not that there was probably a ton of attention on him in Utah either, but that I don't think that'll change. But very good question because I think that will be like what's the ceiling with this team? Like, how good is John Collins is going to determine that, right? Like he's kind of an X factor for this team. By the way, everybody, I love Kawhi. I have a couple of his jerseys. I'm a big Kawhi fan. I'm just joking. But, I'm sure more teams do it than just the Clippers, but they're the ones that got caught, so we have to kid. And that's what my big question was like, is this a serious contender? So they're always on the fringe every year being a good contender. They get to the playoffs and something happens, whether it's an injury when it was Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, or now it's like the James Harden effect. Like, we blame, or they'll blame Russell Westbrook, who's making $3 million a year, but not their star point guard who's making 30 million and just sometimes doesn't shoot the basketball. Like, but what are they a serious contender? I just feel like and then they added Bradley Beal, who hasn't been proven to be a winning player. I just don't feel like they are. Now, this is what the big question is going into the season that they'll be able to answer, but they're not going to be able to answer it until the playoffs. So I just don't know if the roster they have constructed is going to be as good as some of the others. So are they a real contender? That's a big question I have going into the season.
That's a good one. They show spurts of it, like going into the playoffs last year.
Yeah,
We're like, wow, this is it. And then, you know, they probably should have beat Denver, but again, that kind of falls into the like something just doesn't add up. And you come into this year, and you're right. You're like, hey, they could win 58 games, and you'd be like, we got to see James Harden in the playoffs again.
yeah.
We got to see if Kawhi Leonard can make it 3 or 4 rounds. If not, I think you're going to end up with the same result.
And then at some point, you got to ask yourself if you're the Clippers, like, is this the team? If we're not a serious contender, is this team we want to continue to move forward with? And then if not, what are we going to do about that? So yeah, I'm kind of interested in see what happens there. Okay, what is success to you for the Clippers going into the season?
I think like you just mentioned it there towards the end, like they're kind of stuck with their picks. They kind of paid these guys. I think they're just playing it till it ends. So I think success for them is again it's winning in the playoffs. You hate to like make it so cut and dry because sometimes there's variables, but I think with the Clippers they went all in. This is what they have. They put age but depth behind them. So it's got to be playoff success. If you're losing the first round, I don't even care if it's against the Thunder, but if your season went that bad that you got to play the Thunder in the first round, like you failed. So I think it's got to be winning a round or two. And I know it's going to sound weird when you listen to all these West teams, you're going to be like, well, someone's got to lose in the first round. And you're right. And it's going to be a not successful season for those teams. So there's going to be a lot of disappointment in the West.
Yeah, it's funny to me because I always like who do you lose to? It means more to me than when you lose. But with the Clippers, it's been this thing where they lose to the Nuggets in the first round, they lose to this team in the second, like it's been kind of a constant. Like they got to make the Western Conference Finals again at some point. So that's sort of like success to me. Although, like I don't know, I'm not like firm on that. Like if they again, like I know if they're the fourth seed and they end up playing the Thunder in the second round and they lose to the Thunder in seven and it was a very, very competitive series, you might be able to be like, okay, moving forward, if we can just figure out another piece, we got this. Like, you know what I'm saying? That could be successful as well. But just for like the general generic thing, although it's going to be a gauntlet, let's get to the Western Conference Finals. You got Kawhi, Harden, Paul, these guys that are Beal old. They're not going to get better moving forward necessarily. So let's see if we can actually make a playoff run to the finals. Let's see how we do there. Prediction?
Hey, I think with this depth and just assuming moderate health, I think they're a playoff team. I think again, if James Harden goes down, which hasn't happened yet, I would change that because I think he really stirs the pot. But I think they're a lock playoff team.
Yeah, I'm with you. I have them as a playoff team as well. Okay,
again, assuming no one is suspended with all the stuff that's going on. Like obviously, if we have a situation where Kawhi's contract is voided and suspended halfway through the year and he can't play the rest of the year, then I think obviously you have something different. But barring any of that, I think they're a playoff team.
It'd be really interesting because they have the option where they can just like cut the player off the team and like the other team can't sign anybody or whatever. And then Kawhi's like a free agent to go wherever. I think that'd be kind of cool just to see where he goes. But I don't know if you cannot suspend him the rest of the year if you're going to cut him too. So yeah. Okay. Everybody, thanks so much for listening. Let us know in the comments down below what you think the Clippers are going to do this season, your predictions as well. And do you think Kawhi Leonard is going to be suspended? Let us know in the comments down below. Thanks so much for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will talk to you guys real soon. Thanks so much for watching this clip of the Box Score Sports Podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to our channel. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter or X. And we'll talk to you guys real soon. See ya.